Excellent. Hello, everybody. Matt here from Wiley, looking at books publishing August through November. These are all trade titles, and I'll be working from a hot list that I've put together of about a little over 50 books. There's about 250 in the complete catalog, but I'm just going to go with the hot list. But if you want the complete catalog, I can send you that as well. And I will share my screen. Share. There we go. And there we go. I'm sharing the Edelweiss screen. This catalog is on Book Manager and Catalyst as well. But the Edelweiss screen kind of lets me do this so the covers can come up a little bit. This was a drop-in title from a couple of months ago, but I thought I would mention it. John Cotter is a big name business author. He wrote a book called Leading Change about 10 years ago for Harvard Business Review Press. That was a bestseller. He made his reputation on that. Of course, it's all about change now. And this book, Change, is his latest title. So if you've got any decent luck with business titles, general business titles, this guy's a pretty big name. And thanks for coming, everybody. It's always great to talk to you. And hopefully we'll be able to do this together soon. Get hired now. Ian Siegel is the CEO of a big US company called ZipRecruiter. This is his take on how to look for a job, how to make yourself stand out, how to find the job within the field that you really want. So wherever resumes, careers, books go in your store, I think this is the place for this. Nice price in trade paper. Lonely Less, Jill Hassan. This is a UK book. Jill Hassan is a hyper trade author in the UK. Her new releases are almost always front of store at Waterstones. She writes for what they call the commuter market over there, which are people riding the trains to and from work. So when they're on the train in the morning, they want to read something that gives them some self-help, focus, personal development. And when they're going home, it's the same, 25 minutes, 30 minutes. She's done very, very well in that market. And this is her latest. The whole idea of loneliness. The UK has a federal minister of loneliness, and that was about 3 years ago. So this predates the whole pandemic. They take this issue quite seriously over there, and they're a little farther along with it than we are. And this is Hassan's contribution to it. Very tradey, should do well, and a very nice price, $17.99. The Parental Leave Playbook. I moved this up in the catalog because while this comes out of our business group, to me it's a parenting book, and it asks the question that no one really wants to talk about, and that is, if I leave work to have a baby, am I hurting my career, and how much am I hurting my career? Now, most of this has to do with women. They do all the work on this. This book is written for men and women, but it's the first book I've seen that actually gets into this. And I think it does have a place in a parenting section. This is coming from the fact that in the US, parental leave is finally becoming a little bit more widespread. We're way ahead of the game up here. So I think this book does have a place. The Joe Biden Way. Biden's been on the scene for almost 40 years in the US, and still people wonder about where he's coming from, what his values are. And this is what this book is about. It really will be the first book, leadership book about Biden. The author, Jeffrey Crames, has been a long-time business book publisher, editor. He's authored several books, including The Jack Welch Way, and a book on Peter Drucker, both that sold over 100,000 copies. This is his take on Biden. And I think we're going to hear a lot about Joe Biden over the next few years. I mean, it is an American book, but I remember going to University of Toronto years ago to see Gloria Steinem, who came up to speak at Convocation Hall. And it was during a US election campaign. Place was packed, and she comes out and she looks around at everybody and says, I always like coming to Canada during a US election because I think you pay more attention to what's going on than we do down south. So there we go. There's Joe Biden. Met the Queen yesterday. The Capstone Classics line. This is 12 Years a Slave. This is the original book that became the movie that is still in very heavy rotation on the streaming services. It's in this Capstone Classic series, which are hardbound, cased books with the belly band. The belly band has all the information on it, including the price. They're color coded to the book. A very nice presentation here, and an extremely nice price, $16.99. Of course, there are competitive editions out. There's a Penguin Classic on this. Sometimes there's Dover editions and others. This is something new, something collectible, and something very accessible. So 12 Years a Slave is one of them. We have three of them in the front list here, all themed to slavery and history. The Narrative Life of Frederick Douglass. This is in his words. He born a slave. Uniquely, he was taught how to read as a young boy by the wife of the master of the house, who was teaching her own son. When her husband found out that this was happening, he told her to stop. When Douglass was 16, he ran away, crossed the bay to Maryland and Baltimore, and then within like 2 years of that, he went to the UK for almost 2 years, brought over by the abolitionist movement there, and he spoke 4, 5, 6 nights a week, and really honed his public speaking skills. He had added an extra S onto his name so that people would remember him as the Frederick Douglass. And he went on to have a remarkable life and career, lived to be an old man, became friends with Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, and this is his story. There was a recent biography by Blight of Frederick Douglass. You might want to check your records on that. I put the ISBN in the notes. That did very well in hardcover and paperback. And then lastly, the interesting narrative of Olagia Equiano. He was kidnapped as a boy in Africa, kidnapped into slavery, traveled the world on ships, ended up buying his freedom in the US, became a merchant and very successful businessman, and then became an explorer. This is his life in his words. There is a Penguin Classic of it. There's a Dover thrift edition of it. I have never seen this book anywhere. 400 plus pages, 16.99 Canadian. As well, I have a spreadsheet of all the books in this series. If anybody wants that, please let me know. Co-op money is available for in-store displays. Vaccines for dummies. This was mentioned in the last list. The pub dates slipped, but I thought I would mention it again. It is coming out in a couple of months. And significantly, the vaccines are making a difference, but there are still a group of people who are either hesitant or are anti-vaxxers. That group looks like it totals about 20% of the population, 10% being hesitant and 10% who are more hardline anti-vaxxers. The research says the way to get through to these people is with information. And that's what this book does. It's a very even-handed, mainstream account of vaccines. And the idea is to clear up the myths and the misinformation. This book does talk about the COVID vaccines, but much more so, it talks about vaccines in general and childhood vaccines. And it does include schedules for children for the various childhood vaccines. Should do well, I think. It's going to be right up to date and in that very thorough and easy to read dummies presentation. As well, Weather for Dummies. Bill Gates, in his best-selling book, mentions in the foreword that the best book that he ever read about climate change was the first edition of this book, Weather for Dummies, which was published over 10 years ago. We brought out a refreshed edition when we found out that Bill Gates had done that. And now here comes the full-blown and completely up-to-date second edition that will be available in August. Weather, of course, always extremely popular. This is a very thorough book in the dummies way about weather, and it also talks about climate change and the manifestation of climate change in weather. I think it should do really well. Persuade for general business readers. There's, of course, been very successful books like this in the past, including Dale Carnegie. These authors did a previous book called The Power of Nice, which has been through 3 editions so far with Wiley and sold 125,000 copies. How to make decisions. They have a process and a methodology. Hardcover. The Act of Leadership. Self-help performance coming out of our business group. How to help people and how to actually get things done. The 12-week year for writers. This looks pretty good. The authors did a book called The 12-Week Year in 2013 that did extremely well for Wiley, way over 100,000 copies. And what that book is about, and because I'm actually reading it now, is to refocus from thinking annually over 12 months to thinking about doing things in 12 weeks. It's a big ask, and it takes a lot of concentration to be able to do it in a business setting, but it's been very effective. And now they've taken that methodology and put it into this book, A 12-Week Year for Writers. And I mean, we see writers as the literary people, but this book as well is for people who write for a living. And that includes many people in marketing, many people in sales, many people working in government and policy analysis. Um, I think this book will work in all those different areas. Also makes a nice gift. You can change other people. The author's previous book did pretty well about 10 years ago. 18 Minutes from Grand Central Publishing, one of the best business books of the year by PW, the New York Post. It was a bestseller. Wall Street Journal selling over 100,000 copies. So the author's credentials here are really quite good. Lead with empathy, relating to your colleagues, relating to people you work with, relating to people that you manage, and all in the context of this work-life balance. So this is personal and professional. Sort Your Brain Out. This is the UK book, trade book. The author is a neuroscientist and has a lot of experience on TV over in the UK. All about the plasticity of the brain and what you can do to get the work-life balance that people are looking for and also develop. Nice price, $16.99. The Great Lockdown. Lessons learned from the corporate world. I think we're going to see a number of books like this. This is interviews with CEOs around the world in different industries, profit and nonprofit, talking about how they pivoted, how they adapted, how they had to change, what they felt their organizations had to do, and how they had to enable people and lead them through the business changes that they've undergone. This is still an unfolding story, as we all know, but this looks pretty good. I'm sure there's going to be some big name CEO in there, listed in there and interviewed, and their names will be on the back, and that's probably what's going to sell the book. The Unintended Consequences of Technology. Very interesting author profile. Author was named one of the under 30s to watch by Forbes magazine in the business world, and also the Davos people, the World Economic Forum. And the author funds an entrepreneurial startup fund for people from Africa, from underprivileged backgrounds. So I think the credentials are good, the author's in the right place, and this looks like it could be pretty interesting. Awaken the Inner Path, the Path to Inner Peace. The author's previous book was called Conscious Capitalism, and it did pretty well. Almost 10 years ago, New York Times, Wall Street Journal bestseller. I've put the ISBN in the notes there. The GMAT official guide. The GMAT people are the people who give the tests. If you're carrying the Princeton Review, the Barron's book, I would urge you to carry this. There's the main book, which I've listed here. There's a quantitative book to help with the math. There's a reading guide for the comprehension side of it. and then there is a bundle that puts the 3 books together, but this is the main book. A couple of education titles, especially for those who are building relationships with local teachers and school boards. Who's in My Classroom? Teaching in a culturally responsive way. This is for teachers from kindergarten to grade 12. And Doug Lemmoff's Teach Like a Champion. This was a lead title in our last catalog. It slipped. It is coming in August. Lemmoff is based in Albany, New York. His previous edition of this, Teach Like a Champion 2.0, has sold over 500,000 copies. Not all this US curriculum stuff translates and is adaptable to Canada, but I think Doug Lemmoff's classroom techniques are. Looks like Edelweiss is very busy today. And he's also very popular in the UK, which tells me that he does travel well and should work in Canada. Brill Kid, the big number 2. This is for young people. It's the sequel to a pretty big book in the UK's Diary of a Brilliant Kid. There's the ISBN. This is for ages 7 to 11. And then we get into some of the dummies. Photoshop Elements for Dummies. This is the latest edition of this, aimed primarily at non-professional photographers, but really where this book sits is with anybody that has to use Photoshop, and that means many, many, many people who are we would call marketers, who are working in marketing departments, either in nonprofit or the profit sector, anybody doing marketing online. For sure, they're going to have to adapt in Photoshop. And really, this is a very, very good place to start. And for your sections, this is a pretty interesting book to use as a way to plumb the depth of how deep is my market for tech, because the vast majority of that market, because we also have a very deep professional list of these books, which are available at a trade discount, overwhelmingly the sales are print. 85% of the sales are print. The people who are buying these books, they want to have them on their shelves. They want to be able to lay them flat, and they want to be able to refer to them again and again and again. And that's been a recipe for success. TikTok for Dummies, really? We're doing a book on TikTok? Because this book is aimed at the second and third wave users of TikTok as TikTok starts to become a business platform. So the people who are now weighing into TikTok for that purpose tend to be older, not as socially media adept, and that's where this Dummies book would fit in. Statistics 2, always a tough one, statistics. This is a for final year high school, first year CJEP, university level book. These books tend to sell 2 or 3 months after the school term has started, when people realize they need some help, or people who are finished schooling, they're in their job, and they've got new responsibilities that involve business analysis, sales analysis, inventory analysis, and they need to get a little bit more, have more facility with statistics. CBD, oh my gosh, includes 50 recipes. Very popular. weed shops everywhere, seemingly more to come. Should do pretty well. Bollywood, a lot of fun here. Bollywood, this is a book about the industry, the history, the production schedules, which are frantic, the stars, where the music comes from, and this book is in 4-color. Should be a lot of fun. Doodle dogs, very popular breed these days. What to expect from them. Meal Prep Cookbook. This whole category has been incredibly strong over the last year and a half or so. A lot of it spurred, of course, by the pandemic. 125 recipes in here, nutritional information, how to switch things up so that stuff doesn't go stale or get worn out. I mean, this is aimed at parents of young children where time is tight, and also the millennials who are running around. Meal prep is not something that's a priority for them. I put some of the competitive books to this in my notes there, but this whole category has done incredibly well. Raspberry Pi, 4th edition. Among other things, Raspberry Pi is used to teach the beginnings of coding and computing. A lot of camps use Raspberry Pi. These earlier editions of this book have done very, very well. This covers the latest release. Anger management. The Wiley line of wellness books has done, the sales have been very good. The latest example of this is DBT for Dummies. DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, is a subset of CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. DBT is used to treat borderline personality disorder, which is another acronym. Borderline personality disorder is a recognized DSM category syndrome, has been for about 15 years. Research says that about 1/3 of the US prison population has borderline personality disorder undiagnosed. And I don't think that is, that statistic isn't any different from what the story is in Canada. So that book, DBT for Dummies, was featured on Morning Joe, MNBC, the morning talk show they do, the Joe Scarborough Show. About 3 weeks ago, the authors were on for 3 days in a row. Each segment was about 10 or 11 minutes, which is an eternity on TV. And since then, we have sold 50,000 copies in North America of that DBT for Dummies book. And I mention that because DBT, CBT, anger management, they're all coming from the same editorial group. They're all formatted the same way. And they are very, very well done. This is for, of course, people who think they may have a problem with this, but more to the point, for their loved ones, their friends, their family, and to some degree their colleagues. Anger Management for Dummies. Building Your Own Home will match the cover with the actual title. As we know, there's a boom happening with home ownership right now. Remote work has highlighted that people have a lot more flexibility. They can move outside the major metropolitan areas. The people who are in their homes are thinking of expanding or changing their home, dealing with contractors. That's what this book is all about. How much can you do yourself? How much do you have to get other people to do? Penny stocks, a good way to be introduced to the markets. This book is aimed especially at younger people who are using the apps that we see advertised on TV, that they're not with Dad's Guy anymore. Penny stocks can be volatile, but also extremely profitable. And this book, now in its third edition, has done well in the previous editions. Android smartphone photography. Android is the majority of the market. This is how to take better pictures, how to take good food pictures for Instagram. Huge market. One of the aspects of the pandemic, as we've made our way through this, I think a lot of people have realized that while they thought they knew their phones and knew their devices, they've been leaning into them in a much larger way. And these phones are very sophisticated, and these type of books help. And it's the same thing as before. Yes, there is information on YouTube, but with the book, you can lay it flat, you can go back to it, you can use the index, and there are sidebars all through the book with tips on how to use the phone. Android smartphone for seniors. Seniors defined as anybody 50 or up. These Dummies for Seniors books, the type is slightly larger. Some things have been edited out in terms of detail so we can get more room for the larger type. Sidebars everywhere. These seniors books have a very good track record selling through in bookstores. iPhone for Dummies, latest iOS, which I think is 14.6. The incredibly complicated iPhone and all the beautiful things it can do. And iPhone for Seniors. This will include the latest operating system when it comes out in the fall. iMac, 11th edition for beginning to intermediate users. Mac, of course, is its own world. The Dummies has an excellent list of music books, instruments. The Guitar for Dummies is probably the best-selling book. This is Guitar Theory. I've put Guitar for Dummies and Guitar All-in-One for Dummies, the notes in my notes with the ISBNs. Guitar Theory is for the next step up after guitar. People who know the basic open chords, can play a few leads, and now they want to actually get into the whole structure with the bar chords and all the rest of it. The book has been very successful in its previous editions, and here it is again. Singing for Dummies, 3rd edition, for singers of all ages and styles who have not had formal training, amateur theatrics, choirs, children. Previous editions have sold over 125,000 copies. Now in its 3rd edition. NFTs, non-fungible tokens. What they are, how to monetize them, how to build them. There are some self-published books out there on this already. This will be from a trusted source. We're rushing to get this thing out. AI. This is for general readers. It's for beginning computing students or engineering students, and it's for people in the business world who change jobs, get more responsibilities, departments come together, and AI becomes part of their responsibilities. This is a book to get up to speed with that. Physics workbook. This is a write-in book. This is high school level. It's last year or second last year of high school. Will work at a community, at a CGEP level. Has done very, very well in its earlier editions. Office 365, the Microsoft Teams platform. I'll be doing a drop-in catalog in about 3 weeks. There's a whole new Microsoft Teams coming this fall, Microsoft or Office 365 coming this fall. And in my Office 365, there is Teams, there is Excel, there is Word, there's PowerPoint, there's Access. This all-in-one book puts them all together, and it will include the newest version that's coming this fall, and as well we'll have individual books on each one of the applications. And as I say, that'll be in a drop-in catalog in about 3 weeks. We have the Dummies group has a very close relationship with Microsoft, so that when these new releases actually come to market, we've got the books ready to go. Polity, these are trade discounted titles from Polity. Polity is the academic press from Europe that Wiley distributes around the world. Polity's strength is in the humanities, and they are very good at taking bestsellers from other European countries and languages and getting them translated into English. Like this book, Skin, $30 hardback, was a bestseller in Spain. It is for general readers, and it's everything to do with skin, what its function is, the different diseases, the science of it, the culture of it, the myths about it. Kind of offbeat, and I think it's probably going to get a lot of reviews. That's the cover, very striking. China's leaders. China is asserting itself on the world stage. Canada has a very close and complicated relationship with China. I think China is going to be front page news for quite a while. This book is a collection of short biographies of each leader of China from Mao until the present day. David Shambaugh, the author, is very well known in the field. He's done several very esteemed and best-selling books for Oxford University Press. And I think there is a place for this hardcover. The World According to China, a little bit more pricey. The author, Elizabeth Economy, is named by Politico as one of the top 10 people on China. As I say, we have this ongoing relationship with China that I think it's fair to say Canada is going to have to work through again, and that it will change. Nature's Evil, $42 hardcover. If you can sell books on the environment, sell books on climate change, environmental studies. It's an interesting take. It'll probably be a little bit more sellable in paperback, but what it does is it looks at natural resources coal, oil, that type of thing, as characters in the unfolding story of the planet. The Case for Universal Property, very nice price. And this gets into, well, looks like we're still having some issues here. This gets into the, where does the public interest override private ownership? On a global scale, it's, can the Brazilians take care of the Amazon because it affects us all? To the local scale, inequality, public policy, the climate crisis, political economy. This book will work in any of those areas, and a pretty nice price. Love, a History. This is for the general reader. The author had a previous book from Yale University Press about anger. She's a psychologist. This book could very easily be psychology, but the reviews of that book from Yale were extremely good. And yeah, it is hardcover, $30, but a little offbeat, but kind of appealing. This looks very good, A History of Solitude. This was hardcover a year ago, was about $40. Now in paperback, the reviews have been tremendous for it. The pandemic has highlighted solitude, being cut off from loved ones and friends and colleagues and work environments and travel. It's really brought to fore a lot of different aspects about how we've been living our lives, and our reliance on human contact. This book explores all that. I think it's definitely going to find its place. Kristallnacht, The Night of Broken Glass. This book has never been in paperback before. It was published about 15 years ago. The core of the book and why it's good is that it is a very good grouping of eyewitness accounts about that night in Germany in the 30s. That really changed everything. A really good selection of eyewitness accounts. I think a core book in the field, Holocaust studies, World War II, Nazis, always strong categories, and this book should do very well there, and a really nice price, $23.95. Israel, a short trade, objective, middle of the road history of Israel. Yet again, there has been an armed conflict that just ended with Palestine. You know, why does this seem to happen every 10 years or so? For a lot of people, this is new, and this book would be a very good place to start to get a short, thorough history of Israel and the Middle East. It's designed to be read in 1 or 2 sittings. It's designed for the interested general reader, and a pretty good price, $17.95. And lastly, a book that we had that was a lead book in our previous spring season. It's published now. It is out. The author's doing a lot of public speaking. Stephen Rogers, A Letter to My White Friends and Colleagues. He had led a remarkable life, very successful businessman, made several $1 million several times over. He was recently a professor at the Harvard Business School. He's retired from there. His adult daughter, when George Floyd died, phoned him and said, "Dad, you have to write something down as if you were the President of the United States on what people need to do." And this is what he came up with. Um, he talks about his own life as being what he calls a race man. He has devoted his life to better his African American community. And in this book, he talks about what everyone else can do. Lots of good information, lots of good ideas, lots of good background, especially when it comes to mortgages and that type of thing. Very inspirational. I think it does have relevance to Canada, of course, and it's also a good looking book. We're working very hard at Wiley to break this book out in the US. We had a wraparound cover in PW about a month ago, advertising the book. And as we come out of the pandemic and the author events start picking up, we're really hoping that Rogers is going to do very well. So I urge you to give this a shot if you haven't already. And I think, oh yeah, there's DBT. I did put it in. Great. So this is the book I mentioned before, DBT for Dummies. There's the ISBN, the NBC Morning Show, the Joe Scarborough Show, how it's related to borderline personality disorder. And then the last book I wanted to mention was The Age of Fitness. This is a polity book. Was published a few months ago. The author has been interviewed by CBC Radio Ideas. It looks like the show is going to air June 21st, just in a couple of weeks. National show, almost 1 million people listen to it. This is all about how fitness and the body has come to be the barometer for measuring success in modern society. I mean, the whole Peloton thing. This is a European book, excellent reviews of the German edition, now translated into English. And as I say, CBC Radio Ideas has picked it up. So we should get a nice bump out of that. And here it is. Hardcover, 30 bucks Canadian. And that truly is it. I will stop sharing my screen and